Dude, okay. It's Media Literacy Hour with Hasanabi Piker. Let's say a thing happens in the world. Okay, here, let me blast off real quick and then we're going to get right into this fucking story, okay? Before we get to the P. Diddler, Meek Mill, SCOTUS to hear Trump immunity, all that stuff, I'm going to start off with the Israeli occupying force opening fire on Palestinians that were desperately trying to get aid. Okay? That's what we're going to start off with, first and foremost. So there's many different ways that you can cover a story. One way to do it, as I just described, is one, saying Israel-Gaza war. It's not a war, it's an ethnic cleansing campaign. However, this is simply better than the previous formation of this kind of thing, which would say Israel-Hamas war, which definitely is not the truth, right? More than 100 people reported killed, once again, reported killed. So at least they're not saying more than 100 people found dead. Okay? They're saying reported killed in crowd near Gaza aid convoy. So they do mention the Gaza aid convoy, right? That's an improvement as well. But they're saying it's in a crowd near the Gaza aid convoy, not mentioning that it's actually the crowd trying to receive aid, desperate for humanitarian aid in an ongoing ethnic cleansing campaign. And then, of course, the last one is my favorite, the excellent chef's kiss. Hamas-run health ministry says that is, of course, to cast doubt on the numbers, even though every single person that works in the intelligence community, in the respective state departments of each individual state, every single person that works in the Israeli side, every single person that works at an NGO, and every single person that works at the BBC that has been covering this for years, if they know anything about anything, knows without a doubt, without a fucking doubt, that the Hamas-run health ministry numbers have always been the gold standard of figuring out the death toll. And the highest likelihood is that those numbers currently are actually at undercount, because there's like around 10,000 people that we know of that are most likely still under the rubble. So just saying, this is the greatest version that you are going to get from Western media, because then you have other ones where it says at least 100 killed and 700 injured in chaotic incident where IDF opened fire as people waited for food in Gaza. So strange. It is hard to confirm information in Gaza. I wonder why that is. Yes, that's a great question. It is because there's an ethnic cleansing campaign going on. Okay, an ethnic cleansing campaign that targets children, targets women, civilian men, the elderly. That is why it's very difficult. Not shocking that they shot at a fucking crowd of people that are trying to desperately get food. Here's what Itamar Ben-Gvir had to say about this. Total support must be given to our heroic fighters operating in Gaza who acted excellently against the Gazan mob that tried to harm them. Today, it was proven that the transfer of humanitarian aid to Gaza is not only madness while our abductees are being held in the Strip under substandard conditions, but also endangers the IDF soldiers. This is another clear reason why we must stop transferring this aid, which is in fact to harm the IDF soldiers and oxygen to Hamas. That's awesome. The best backup that can be given our fighters is to throw you out of power with a missile. Anyway, this is another good one. Many were killed and injured after Israeli forces opened fire near an aid convoy. Starkly different accounts of what happened were offered. Bro, you are a fucking news publication. Your job, it's like journalism 101. Your job is not to go, some people are saying it's raining outside. Other people are saying it's sunny outside. Open the fucking window, crack it open, and put your fucking hand out to see if it's raining or if it's fucking sunny. What do you mean? This is literally like, this is not news. You are not reporting on the news. Breaking news. Things are happening. We don't know what. Who could tell? I don't know. Probably Israel's in the right. Okay, thanks. I feel very informed by this. This is the fucking gray lady. This is the paper of record, dog. What the hell is going on? Many were killed and injured after Israeli forces opened fire near an aid convoy. Starkly different accounts. Like, some things happen to some people. We don't know anything. This is giving up, dude. This is literally like, Bro, this is me during COVID when I just stopped working out. I just gave up. Okay. I was like, fuck it. I'm not moving. I'm not moving at all. This is, you've directly said now as the most important institution in the field of journalism in the United States of America, you said, I'm giving up. What the fuck? I see your New York Times push notification and I raise you this. Jason Hickel. Dude, when you wanted to send this, when you first sent this link to me, I thought you were like sending me a Jackson Hinkledink link. And I was like, I don't want to. Biden says Gaza food aid related deaths complicate ceasefire talks. Food aid related deaths? What does this mean? What is he talking about? Food aid related deaths? What is, like, did they get poisoned? Did the food aid collapse on top of the people? Like, what is... Okay, let's hear another one. Heated exchange. State Department spokesperson Matt Miller, unable to condemn Israel's killing, blames Hamas. Why is it so difficult for this government to say we condemn the killing of Palestinian women and children? Why don't you say the word condemn? We don't want to see anyone die. Hamas launched this war in the first place. Oh my God! Yet I haven't heard a word condemn. This war began. Began way before October 7th.
You don't have any doubt that only one side did the shooting and the killing and the shelling and so on of these people, correct?
Said, I have seen reports No,
you haven't. No, you haven't. You have not seen any reports. Or you have, and you're lying. You have seen the reports. You're just fucking lying. Your job is to lie. Oh my God. Oh, I saw that. Actually, guys, I saw that it was actually the Palestinian people themselves that were killing themselves. They found guns and they started shooting themselves.
I've seen different reports with respect to that very question.
Right.
We don't know, as I said earlier, the ground truth of what happened, which is why we think it's appropriate that investigation be conducted.
So you think that there were...
Bro, they say this every time, okay? They say this every fucking time. And then they just block and push and wait until Israel does another unimaginably cruel thing. And then they push it down the line again and again and again and again. It's unimaginable. Anyway, more than 110 Palestinians are reported to have been killed while trying to get desperately needed aid in North Gaza. Crowds of waiting civilians descended on a convoy of lorries after it passed through an Israeli military checkpoint on the coastal road west of Gaza City. Israelis military said troops fired at some of those people they thought were a threat. In the ensuing chaos, the lorries attempted to move forward. A Palestinian witness told the BBC that most of those who died were run over. At least 112 people were killed and 760 others injured in the incident, the spokesman of Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry, Ashraf al-Qudra, said in a statement on Thursday afternoon. Dramatic aerial footage released by the Israeli military showed thousands of people on and around the lorries, while graphic videos of the aftermath posted on social media showed some of the dead loaded onto emptied aid lorries and a donkey cart. Why are they so desperate for aid? Why has the aid actually trickled in such slow numbers? I know people that are fucking out there right now. I see them talking about it in Jordan specifically, talking about how impossible it is and how much aid is being currently held up in points of entry. Why? It's not like the entire world isn't trying to desperately bring help into Gaza. They certainly are. Kids are eating fucking animal feed and grass, especially in northern Gaza. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry blamed Israel for what it called a massacre, while U.S. President Joe Biden expressed concern that it would complicate efforts by the U.S. and other mediators to broker a temporary ceasefire in the war between Hamas and Israel. I'll tell you this much, and I mean this with all sincerity. I think the amount of Hamas-run health ministry has actually unironically caused more people in the Western world to be like, yeah, okay, I'm with those guys, actually. Like, originally, when it started, there was obviously the bad guys in the eyes of the Western world and the way that they received it were Hamas. They went in and they did unspeakable things, and a lot of people were geared up with the atrocity propaganda on top of the real atrocities that had occurred. So they were like, oh my God, of course I condemn Hamas. This is devastating. This is devastating. But after 5 months, constantly fucking positioning Hamas against the IDF has unironically normalized Hamas as a legitimate entity. Because guess what? For the past 5 months, Hamas has been defending the Palestinian population against the Israeli military's brutal genocidal bombing campaign. So of course people are going to see that. And with the media constantly being like, Hamas run health ministry, Hamas said this, Hamas said that. Of course people are going to inevitably be like, all right, you know what? Lesser evil. Because it is. Because it fucking is. I will stand on that. I will stand on this business. Hamas, between Hamas and Israel, Hamas is the lesser evil of the two, both in the amount of civilians that they deliberately targeted and killed, okay, in comparison to the amount of actual soldiers that they killed. That's it. The numbers are undeniable, okay? That is before we talk about like the destruction of civil society. That's it. You consistently have such a high view of the normie brain. The more you learn every day actually separates you more and more from the average person. I think that normal human beings, if given all of the facts, will most likely go along with their morality and will inevitably be able to overcome their previous social conditioning. People will get real mad at you for that take. For what take? That Hamas is the lesser evil between Hamas and IDF? I am ready to stand on that take all day, every day. I've been saying that. I've been saying that because it's fucking true. It's literally true. People are actually insane for acting like that is not the case. It is objectively the case. They have killed, one, by totality, significantly fewer civilians, and per capita, they've killed significantly fewer civilians in comparison to enemy combatants. It's not even a question. It's not even a question. And that is before we talk about like the fucking obvious like death and destruction of like normal civil life. Shutting off food, shutting off aid, shutting off electricity. Hamas does not have the capacity to do these things to Israel in the same way that Israel does, because Israel is the occupier. Israel is, and this is not just like me being fucking woke and doing like entry-level theory. I love bros defending rapists. I never defended Israel. I never defended Israel. That's really fucked up that you said that. Number one. Dude, this is how laughable the fucking pro-Israel propaganda is. They're just keep trying to fucking revamp the atrocity, the atrocity porn over and over again. It's so funny. I have never been more vindicated on any issue more than my consistent takes on fucking Israel and Palestine. And the only reason for why is because like I've seen it, I've covered it for 10 fucking years. That's it. Somebody hasn't heard the news about the New York Times story? Yeah. I missed a bit where Hamas were parading the underwear of the women they had killed. Oh yeah, that's right. You missed that bit because Israel's been doing that. That's a good one. You're right. True. Forgot about that one. Oh yeah, no, we're going to talk about the story behind the New York Times October 7 expose, the most famous mass atrocity rape on October 7 article, and who wrote the article and how that article was ever even fucking brought up. And the New York Times itself recognized very quickly after they fucking blasted it into the ether that it did not meet the muster of like a genuine piece of journalism. And there was a lot of internal battles inside of the New York Times for even bringing that fucking article up. The Daily had to delete their fucking entire episode. It should call into question everything you fucking know about the way that these guys operate. Yeah. The New York Times is also launching a leak investigation over this. The New York Times is conducting a leak investigation, a rare move of the paper following the Intercept's report on a yet-to-air episode of The Daily addressing claims of sexual violence committed by Hamas on October 7th. That's so funny that the entire fucking media is like running defense for the New York Times here when they fucked up in a ginormous way. That's the more interesting part, is that the New York Times is doing a leak investigation, not the fact that they literally... Oh, okay. Yeah. Glad to see the New York Times is taking internal and external criticisms of it covered seriously. It's important that any organization to be able to self-reflect, learn from mistakes, and improve. Oh, wait, this is what they're doing instead. Launching a leak investigation. This is Trumpian shit. I am thankful for the New York Times for standing behind the important stories we've published. The Times didn't just stand behind me, but also many of the women whose stories needed to be told. The recent attack against me will not deter me from continuing my work. telling the truth and giving voice to women in Israel and worldwide. I understand why people who do not know me were offended by the inadvertent like I pressed on 10-7, and I apologize for that. Anyway, absolute demon shit. We're gonna get to that in a second. Let's continue with the let's continue with the other manufacturing consent story that we were talking about. Yeah, I mean, Itamar Ben-Gvir has always been embracing that he's a villain. Themesius, we already talked about this. He very openly was like, no more aid. They've been saying that. There's plenty of people that are saying that. Anyway, but we'll get to the New York Times leak and The Intercept's brilliant reporting on the matter. But before we get to that, let's get back to the story at hand. The incident happened hours before the health ministry announced that more than 30,000 people, including 21,000 women and children, had been confirmed killed in Gaza since the start of the conflict. 21,000 women and children have been killed. 30,000 total have been killed. Okay? There is no world in which you can engage in lesser evil and act like Israel is actually the good guys here. Israel were the bad guys on October 6th. Israel were the bad guys on October 8th. Israel has been the bad guy for 75 fucking years. If you want like the Marvel Cinematic Universe style good bad dynamics here, this is one of the very few instances where you can actually do that because the morality is clear. It's like Ukraine and Russia, right? Russia, bad guys for fucking invading Ukraine. That's it. That's it. Don't do that. Israel, bad guys for being an apartheid state. Don't do that. You can fucking desperately cling on to the preconceived notions that people may have about Hamas and they're scary and they're Muslim and they're terrorists and you know, all of this other stuff that happened. Oh my God. But it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Some 7,000 others have been reported as missing. 70,450 have been treated for injuries over the past 4 months, according to the ministry. This is deeply shocking. But Azov, that's so funny that you say Azov. I don't know if you're like pushing Z or if you're like trying to make fun of me as a NATO defender or something. But I've always maintained the position that like, while Azov is a nationalist battalion, this does not justify Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I've never, ever fucking said that it was valid. This is deeply shocking because if you add the number of people who have been injured and the number of people who are missing, you have more than 100,000 people, which represents 5% of the population. Philip Lazzarini, the head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, told the BBC. The UN is also warning of a looming famine in the north of the territory, where an estimated 300,000 people are living with little food or clean water. Rory V, thank you for the 50 gifted subs. I'm going to run the 3-minute ad break right now as well at the top of the hour, and then we're going to move on. We're going to continue with the story. I'm not doing like a segue. People need to drop decorum when talking about Israeli atrocities because IOF sympathizers get extremely accusational, emotional, and shred up rabid when you mention it. We shouldn't honor Zionists with candor in political speech because it's the same as legitimizing Nazis. At this point, if you're at a table with one Zionist and 10 other people, you are at a table with 11 Zionists. There's a difference. There's certainly a difference because of the varying degrees of Zionism and what people understand and it being like a foreign nation. The Israeli military launched a large-scale, but it is definitely genocide. It is genocide. As is 100% true. It's genocide. Through and through. That's it. Israel is engaging in genocidal actions, and America is funding and facilitating that genocide, providing political cover for said genocide, giving weapons to Israel to continue conducting said genocide. It's not even this is not like anyone who tries to debate you on this point is just an unserious person who is a cruel and heartless individual in general. There is no way that you can look at the situation and go, I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe a little bit of genocide is fine. It's valid. I mean, if you tell them simple facts, they push back and they're toast Nazi apologists are complicit in genocide. Yes. Anyway, the Israeli military launched a large-scale air and ground campaign to destroy Hamas, which is prescribed as a terrorist organization by Israel, the UK, and others after its gunmen killed about 1,200 people in southern Israel on October 7th and took 253 people back to Gaza as hostages. Thursday's incidents took place shortly after 4 2 GMT, past an Israeli military checkpoint on Rashid Street, which runs along the Mediterranean coast. Palestinian sources gave the location as the Nabulsi roundabout on the southwestern edge of Gaza City. Now, if you've seen like convoys such as this one, aid convoys in the past, there's always chaos in the delivery. And that chaos is a consequence of, okay, excuse me, I'm sorry that I fucking burped. Okay, suck my dick. It happened on accident. Jesus Christ, I'm a human being. I'm a human being who's doing the hardest job on the planet, as always, you know? I strongly disagree. Given how the Palestinians are portrayed, so many automatically side with Israel, succumbing to media propaganda. It is not granted that people see this clearly. If what you are saying was correct, then the majority of the American population would not be demanding a ceasefire. I think, and with all sincerity, I think there's a lot more Americans that are like, enough is enough. Fucking dial it back. What the hell is going on? Especially in comparison to like where such a military campaign or how such a military campaign would have been received 10 years ago. Hassan, there are no major protests in America. I don't think average people care about it all that much. First of all, you're wrong. There have been major protests in America endlessly for the past 5 months without fatigue in general. The difference is media never covers it on purpose. And also, we just covered a massive protest vote campaign where 100,000 plus individuals in the state of Michigan went and voted uncommitted. If you think that the protests have not been ongoing, you're basically telling on yourself. Genuinely insane that this is the right-wing Israeli reaction to the Biden administration, giving them literally every single thing they want with no limitations and conditions. I am an Israeli outraged at Biden's betrayal of Israel by forcing a stop the war in Gaza and preventing Israel from winning and eradicating Hamas, and forcing on Israel a terrorist Palestinian state as a reward for the massacres and rapes of Jews to appease anti-Semitic leftist voters.
My name is Shula. I'm an Israeli, and I'm outraged. I'm so disappointed by President Biden.
Dude, this shit is awesome. Like, no, more please. You are a fucking unhinged freak, dude. No, it's great. It's great. This kind of stuff is great. I love seeing just the most mentally ill person I've ever seen in my entire life be so fucking bloodthirsty for more Palestinian children and women to be murdered. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. These people are so fucking despicable. First of all, why are you dressed the way you're dressed? What's going on here, lady? What the fuck's going on? Okay, never mind.
He betrayed Israel. He wants us to have a ceasefire. And when we are in the beginning of the end of this war, we are winning big. It will be known as one of the best victory open warfare in the history of the world.
Is she in Brickell? Is this Brickell? What's this background? This doesn't look like Israel to me. This looks like fucking Brickell, right? Yeah, it looks like Miami. Brickell is it's Florida. It's Miami. Miami, Israel. Yes, it's Brickell City Center. Bitch, I know my fucking Miami. I lived there, dog. I know my shit. Thank you to the Miami natives backing my ass up here. I am the Geo Rainbolt, okay? I'm the real Geo Rainbolt here.
We are winning because there is no other alternative after the atrocity and the massacre of the Jewish people. And Biden wants us to stop the war in order to give victory to Hamas, to credit them with the victory, and then...
She's so insane, brother. Oh my God. Oh my fucking God. Every part of this is awesome. She's fake crying, the outfit, the massive Star of David that she like put over her fucking gold necklace. Whoo! How are we stuck with the conservative Cubans and the Zionists? I hate that I love Miami. Oh yeah, no. Florida is the fucking actual armpit of the United States of America. It's got the absolute worst of the worst of the worst of the worst, brother. Not even a question. Florida is winning the absolute worst person Olympics every time, dude. Filled to the goddamn brim.
during the ceasefire, supposedly he cares about releasing hostages, but it's not about the hostages. He wants to lead it. During that time, he will declare a Palestinian state. He will give a reward, a prize to Hamas terrorist Nazi and credit them with the win that they got a war. It's like after United States defeated Al Qaeda in Iraq and in Afghanistan. It's like United States would.
I'm gonna be honest, dude. Like her being super fucking ugly and also trying to do fake tears while dressed like an 18-year-old definitely ruins most of the, like, half of the fucking argument that she's trying to present is immediately destroyed by how fucking hysterically ugly she is, okay? How hysterical and how ugly she is both inside and out unironically just destroys half of the fucking marketing here, okay? Sorry. She looks insane.
Give Al Qaeda state to the enemies of the United States in the Middle East, but it's worse. Have an Al Qaeda state in Canada and in Hamas. Do you understand it?
Hamas! Get the fuck out of here, bro. Hamas! Al Qaeda and Hamas! Shut the fuck up, dumbass. Oh my God. Oh my God, dude. What is happening, dude? What the fuck? Bro, I said this before, but like, Israel obviously greatly cares about how their Hasbara is received in the Western world. If I'm Mossad, I'm making sure these guys don't have any phones, okay? I'm making sure these are the first guys I'm going after. You understand? I'm trying to ensure that this person never, ever presents themselves as pro-Israel ever again. Straight up.
It will be the continuation. It will be again and again the 710 of horrors, 9/11 against us. That's what he's doing in order to convince the Muslim in Michigan to vote for Biden for a war. This is what he's talking about, politics.
Bro, she's shaking like she got the vaccine injury.
And he wants the young people, the extreme to the left that worship now.
When that Moderna hits, okay, and my girl starts tweaking. This is... Oh, no. Hamas! Hamas! Biden wants to vote for Hamas!
Osama bin Laden on TikTok, that they will be the one. 80% of the American people.
It's so funny because, like, I can't even hear a single goddamn thing that she's saying because it's like, it's so loud in the background that, like, she's also, like, hysterical, but, like, whisper yelling, if that makes sense, and gasping for air in between, too. It's just every part of this video, 10-10, okay? 10-10. Phenomenal new ways of saying Hamas. Worst fit of all time. It's great, dude. This is like, bro, she's about to get a contract from any current day metal band. She got nice screams. No, she's whisper screaming.
With Israel, and he cares about the 20% and neglecting, deserting the only democracy in the Middle East. The only
Read about who her dad was. After seeing the horrors of his fellow Jews as suffered in the concentration camps, Shula's father returned back to pre-Israel in July 1946 and joined the Irgun, of course, the Jewish underground under the command of Menachem Begin to force the British out of Palestine and establish an independent Jewish state. He was one of the first fighters to conquer Jaffa. In 1948, he joined the Israeli Defense Forces. Biden is in the beginning was normal and then turned on us, the Jewish state, when we decided to fight. Because Biden secretly loves Hamas. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, it's so good. Back and not to act like victims and decided to use a rod to self-defense and destroy evil. Yeah, dude. I mean, this lady, this is what happens when you get a lobotomy.
Jewish state that suffer Holocaust, and we are trying to protect ourselves against evil, and also we can continue to live one Jewish state with Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah, with Judeo-Christian values. Dude, there's no way she thinks she's popping off with this, right? Like, why did you post this, dumbass? This is just like 2 minutes of unfiltered, like, baby brain shit. Oh, first she popped off with the Hebrew, too. She made both of them. She made a Hebrew version and also an English version. She said, we want one apartheid state. Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying, bro. You gotta, dude, listen. If I'm in charge of Hasbara, I'm trying to make sure only baddies are talking about Israel, okay? No more Amy Schumer, no more fucking Brett Gelman. I'm trying to find baddies. I'm trying to find baddies to be like, yeah, actually, fucking genocide is so sick. It's the sickest. It's always these people. The fuck's going on? They lost all the TikTok girlies. Ain't nobody's out here being like, yeah, Israel has a right to defend itself on TikTok. They're not doing that. Honey, come quick. New Hasanabi impersonation just dropped. Yeah, bro. Michael Rappaport. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Low key, though, I have noticed, and maybe it's because they're already like famous, I guess, and I've been paying more attention. But like every single person that was like, Arabs are rapist dogs that need to be ritualistically humiliated and ethnically cleansed in Hollywood has gotten like Tampax commercials and shit like that. Like, I feel like Michael Rappaport is about to get a fucking Oscar or some shit for you know, his like third background guy on some fucking Geico commercial. You know what I mean? It's just crazy. It's crazy. What is happening? What is this hardest tweet writer? Who's that? Got to make sure the English speakers listen to. All the baddies are on the front lines. No, they're not. What material reasons does Israel have to continue this? Is there oil there? I know they're ethno-nationalists and probably won't want material reasons, but I'm curious. Yeah, I mean, it's just like pure dominance in that area for sure. And yes, ethno-nationalism. It's pure fascism. That's it. There is no other way to describe it. It's just pure fascism. Tiffany Haddish, too. She just wanted to tour Israel to stand up. Yeah, Tiffany Haddish standing up to the oppressive nature of age of consent laws. Bro, come on, man. You don't have to literally have every single celebrity that has had like grooming allegations fucking go to Israel and do a tour there. Okay? It's like the USO for pedophiles. What the fuck is happening? Straight up. What the fuck? Everyone is like, oh yeah, well, was I outed as a groomer? Well, time to go to Israel. Time to, yeah. Time to go to Israel and talk about how Israel has a right to defend itself. Avengers Age of Consent. P. Diddy is about to make the most P. Diddy is about to make the most unforgettable trip to Israel of a lifetime. Okay. Shit. Doesn't it make sense because Israel has lax extradition laws? Yes, that is the major reason why a lot of like people do end up going there. Yes. Please click the link. You think her drip is bad here? Look at this outfit she has. Yo! Okay, I take it back. This lady is goated. This lady is actually Wait, what? Why is she dressed up like am I crazy? Is she trying to look like a Nazi? Like, what is happening? Bro, she's wearing fetish gear. Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman costume. Yeah, this is literally fetish gear. A cross between a Nazi and a Dom. Zionist. I'm telling you, it's a sex thing. Yeah, the armbands are, bro, this is like, I feel like this is so aggro, the German state is going to come down on it. Like, they're going to be like, hey, sorry, you can't, we're going to copy strike you. You cannot be biting our steez, lady. You officially ruined latex for me. I hope you're happy. Yeah, the armbands are a little on the nose, I think. It's weird that she has a gimp suit on and she made it like, she tried her hardest to make it as Nazi as possible. Anyway, it's Gyat woman. Oh, she's not Yacht woman. Did you see that simulated war game predicted an Israel-Iran war would go nuclear real fast? Lemafao. I did not. And I hope that never happens. The Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist posted on it. The atomic clock guys. Yesterday, you said Dems are only one step away from posting fake sexy photos of Biden, and not even an hour later, I saw this tweet, Lamau. Bro, I know my hogs, man. I know my fucking hogs. Hogs come in all shapes and sizes, and of all different political backgrounds, including liberals. There you go. This is it. Have you seen Ben-Gvir's post where he outright states that it was the Israeli soldiers conducting a massacre and praises said soldiers? Yes, I did. By the way, speaking of German state, the other day you heard a chatter was fined £300 for reposting your shit. I raise you this. I have to pay 1,400 euros for attempting, I didn't, to steal a €3.99 smoothie. German legal system doing well. That's crazy. When will you use this power for good? I can't precog good things. Okay? I cannot precog good things because only bad things are happening. It's not like I'm wishing it upon the world for it to happen. I'm just telling you it's going to happen. And then it does end up happening. And unfortunately, it's just only bad things. I see very little good things coming in the future. Anyway.
Other people shooting
Saeed, I said I have seen reports that other people were shooting. I don't know the veracity of any of those reports, which is why we're seeking more information.
And you expect to get any results from these investigations,
We do.
these reports?
We
Will
do.
you come back to us next week and tell us this is?
I can't promise you next week because I don't know how long an investigation will take, but hold on. Certainly when an investigation is completed and we're briefed on that investigation, I'm happy to come brief you on that.
On the principle of it, why is it so difficult for this government to say we condemn the killing of children, Palestinian women and children? Why can't you say the word condemn?
Saeed, if you listen to what I said a moment ago,
I
hold on. Saeed, please don't interrupt me.
Yeah.
I said far too many Palestinians have died. Thousands of Palestinian children have died, and it is a tragedy when one of them dies. Of course, we don't want to see a single child die. We don't want to see anyone die as a result.
He's like, famously, listen, thousands of Palestinians die. It's a statistic. One Palestinian dies is a tragedy. Actually, as a matter of fact, it's fine. It's always a statistic. I don't really care.
Result of this conflict, which is why we have been working to bring this conflict to a close as soon as possible. But whenever you ask me these questions, I do think you continue to kind of just elide over the fact that
it's like, dude, listen, the final solution was not a conflict, okay? It was ethnic cleansing. Like, I don't understand. Dude, you can say anything's a conflict, okay? Marat, buying new things to fill my fucking garage is a conflict, okay? It's a very broad spectrum of events that you can consider to be a fucking conflict. You're a libtard. I am not a libtard, I don't think. What do you think of XG? Why are you such a liberal? Don't ban this guy. He's a pet. New pet. My body and I had a conflict this morning on the toilet. Yeah, it could be anything and everything. That's why words matter. That's why we have different words. That's why we use different words specifically to talk about different things.
Hamas bears a great deal of responsibility for putting those children in harm's way. Remember, it was Hamas that launched this war in the first place with an attack on Israel that killed men, women, and children, and that Hamas that hid and continues to hide behind children as human shields. So yes, we do not want to see any child die. We don't want to see any innocent civilian die, which is why we are working so hard to try to achieve a temporary ceasefire that would alleviate their suffering.
Yet I have not heard the word condemn. I mean, this war began way before October 7. I mean, in fact, the reason that this administration was so strong on, pursuing a Middle East peace and so on, because the war has been going on for decades before and so on. We heard this administration when they came into office talking about reopening the consulate, talking about reopening the PLO office here, talking about restarting and reigniting peace talks and so on, re-aiding UNRWA and so on, simply because that war has been going on for a very long time. Because Gaza was under siege for a very, very long time.
Saeed,
So
nothing that happened before October 7th justifies what Hamas did on that day. And it is what Hamas did on that day that led to the outbreak of this war and led to the suffering of so many innocent Palestinians. And I just feel it's important to correct that fact.
That's fine. I mean, you guys said this many times before, but in fact, Israel has been waging war on Gaza for a very, very long time. Let me ask you on the aid issue, on the trucks and the trailers and so on. Is there anyone other than Israel that is holding the aid from going in?
It is not a question of aid going in. That's not the problem right now, Saeed. The problem is that when aid gets in, there's a distribution problem inside Gaza right now because there are police officers, some of whom are members of Hamas, who have been providing the security for those for that distribution inside Gaza. And what Israel says is that they have a legitimate right to go after members of Hamas. So we would obviously prefer to see members of a security force inside Gaza who are not Hamas members, but that's not where we are today. So it is a situation that we continue to try to work through.
So this is really the classic catch-22 kind of situation because Hamas governed Gaza for a very long time. All the police, all the many of the security forces and so on. Unless you supply Gaza with police and other staff people, whatever, who are from Egypt, from anywhere, to distribute these things, it's going to be the same people to distribute it.
As I said, it is
so this is really you're saying, okay, you can't, it's a catch-22 situation.
I don't think you're listening to what I said. What I said is we believe the way to ultimately solve this problem is to try to get a temporary ceasefire that would.
Brother, listen to me. Listen to me. He is Hamas. Okay? Sometimes even Matt Miller himself is Hamas. That's how it works. You have to kill the Hamas inside of you sometimes. You missed the Freudian slip? Yes, I saw, I heard. That's what I'm saying. He's right. The reporter, also Hamas. Matt Miller, Hamas. Joe Brandon, Hamas. Benjamin Netanyahu, Hamas. Yeah. Inside of you are two wolves. Both of them support Hamas. That's it. And they're both gay. Yeah, Bibi says no elections. Pass Haredi draft law compromise. Otherwise, election ends war. What is the utility of general elections now, asked Netanyahu. General election means the end of the war. Which, by the way, says a lot about the way that the Israeli population views the continuation of the war. Because, like Benjamin Netanyahu, deeply unpopular. Okay, Benjamin Netanyahu, very unpopular. War, very popular. Oh, so sometimes a joke. It's another good day not to be the New York Times public editor, but the organization could really use one right now to investigate on behalf of the readers. Yeah. Multiple New York Times sources tell me we're going to talk about Anat Schwartz in a second and the October 7 rape atrocity propaganda that that Israel tapped into Hillary Clinton to promote and talk about. Okay. Representative Ilhan Omar accused the Biden administration of greenlighting the massacre of Palestinians. What is true? She is right. And she should say it. ADL Jonathan Greenblatt weighs in on voting uncommitted in Michigan. Pathetic, he says, adding those voting uncommitted should get involved in the political process, to which the host responds in so many words, isn't that what they're doing?
Meaning the people voting uncommitted. I don't know. Yeah. I'm old enough to remember.
Why do you give a shit? Why do you care? Don't act like you give a fuck about the Democratic Party, bitch.
When you're upset about policies that a government was doing or that your political party was doing, you actually got involved. You didn't pull back. You said, I want a seat at the table and I'm going to earn it and then demand. I think what's happened is ridiculous. And how's that going to help economic opportunity for the people of Michigan? How's that going to help make that state better? How's that?
Yeah, dude. I don't think they care about that. I think they care about the fucking genocide. You know, sometimes genocide's pretty big. Pretty big deal, you know? Pretty big fucking deal for a lot of people.
Can help the Democratic Party win.
People who just voted.
I think these people voting uncommitted, I think it's pathetic. And if they really want to make a difference, they should roll up their sleeves and get involved. But you know what, Andrew? I hope they like what the other guy will do. I'm sure he'll listen to them, you know?
That's awesome. That's awesome. Every liberal is like this now, which, by the way, I don't even know if Greenblatt is still a liberal, honestly. But goddamn, everyone is just like, I can't wait for Trump to fucking deport you. Like, oh shit, man. Damn, didn't realize like it was like that. Okay, fuck. I cannot wait for Trump to do another Muslim ban. You don't want to vote for us? You don't want to vote for the Democratic Party? Just you wait. Oh, man. I got called a terrorist twice yesterday on Insta. Welcome to my life, dude. I've been getting called a terrorist every fucking day by liberals mostly. Like, it used to at least be Republicans that used to call me a fucking terrorist. Now it's like Joe Biden defenders on the timeline being like, you are literally a terrorist. You love terrorism. You are a terrorist. It's crazy. It's crazy how fucking hard so many goddamn motherfuckers have just like dropped any pretense of just like being woke at all at the tip of a fucking, at the drop of a hat. They are now immediately like, nope, you're a terrorist.
Now, I mean, it's like, it's absurd.
The institution.
What happened in Michigan?
Anyway, Biden camp responds to Michigan Uncommitted campaign. Biden campaign co-chair Mitch Landrieu finally responded to listen to Michigan's Uncommitted campaign, stating, we are going to continue to talk to them and ask them to think about the choices and what the consequences are about electing somebody who wants to have a Muslim ban. Today, 104 Palestinian civilians were killed by Israeli forces as Gazans try to access food aid trucks in Gaza. In response, listen to Michigan campaign manager Laila El-Abed issued the following statement. It is deeply offensive that President Biden keeps suggesting he has a messaging issue among Arab Americans and young people rather than a funding bombs issue. Biden's re-election chances will be judged by how much of Gaza is left standing by November. It is our hope that Biden chooses the people of America over sending Netanyahu a blank check for war and occupation. They're so clear. Like, this message is so incredibly clear. And the Democratic Party is basically still going, yikes, sweaty. Well, the other guy will send bombs too, and they're going to be extra racist. And it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you saying openly that you want to be like 1% less racist than the other guy? Sorry, I'm going to be 1% less racist than the other guy. You have to vote for me. I've been covering politics in the United States of America, specifically the Democratic Party, for 10 fucking years now. And this is the first time I have seen the Democratic Party so openly lean on the harm reduction angle in a way where they're like, no, we're going to continue doing harm, but like a little bit less harm. It's unironically, it's gotten worse than it was before. I don't know how. That's so good. Holy shit. The tell is in what they are saying. The other guy with the words, meaning they know what they're doing is bad. Yeah. It's nuts. Mehdi Hassan went on Jake Tapper, by the way, which is pretty crazy. But again, a lot of this stuff is good. A lot of this stuff is a testament to two things. One, the success of the Vote Uncommitted campaign in Michigan, the fact that they actually are having like pro-Palestinian, outwardly pro-Palestinian voices on mainstream media. That's a good thing. The second thing is that it is a testament to how aggressive Israel is, because like Israel's genocidal campaign has reached the breaking point. It has. And I think it reached a breaking point maybe like a month, maybe 2 months ago, as a matter of fact, where after the ceasefire and the hostage swap, when people saw that, oh, there is a different way to go about this, as a matter of fact, when Israel went back to this same old bullshit that they were doing with the ethnic cleansing, I think people were like, oh, this is like genuinely just, you know, ethnic cleansing. Like, that's all it is. And what I mean by that is, obviously, it should have never gotten here, right? This should have been put an end to many, many years ago. October 6th was still an apartheid state. But what I'm trying to simply state is that more Americans that normally would not have paid attention to this shit, or media outlets that normally would have done way more cover for Israel, are now openly openly stating that, enough is enough. Do you condemn the uncommitted voters? Fuck no. I think they're fucking awesome. I think they're great. I think the uncommitted voting campaign was a phenomenal success. An absolute phenomenal success. It was great. I love how they're cool with the Taliban now as a government, but at the same time, it's like everyone's Hamas. I don't know.
Hassan joins us now. He just launched his own digital media company, Zeteo, which means to seek in Greek, which of course Mehdi is Greek, we all know. His book is titled Win Every Argument. Show me, guys. Don't show Mehdi. Show me. There, Win Every Argument. It's on paperback now. Check it out. Great book. Mehdi, I want to talk about Zeteo in a second, but first,
yes,
I got to know your take on the significance of this uncommitted vote last night.
I completely agree with your intro. It is the case that Michigan does have big uncommitted, proportions. Obama went on to win it very easily against Romney in 2012. The difference in 2012 was it was not an organized effort. It was people just expressing discontent or whatever you do. Here is a very explicit aim to get a ceasefire in Gaza. That is what a lot of the voters in Michigan want. I've been speaking to people in Dearborn, across the state, and it's not just Muslim Americans or Arab Americans.
No, progressives, young people.
People of color, young voters. This is what Debbie Dingler, a congresswoman, they made the point that this is not just Arab Americans. 100,000 people plus is a lot of people in a state that Biden won by what, 150,000? Hillary.
It wasn't a phenomenal success. It increased from 10% in 2012 to 12.5 with a major push. That's literally not a major success, Lamau. Such fucking cope. Bro, you do not understand how any of this shit works if you legitimately think that a campaign that was launched in 3 weeks, in a matter of 3 weeks, was able to capture 100,000 fucking voters' attention that are literally participating in the Democratic primary to say to Biden, you have to change course. The fact that, yeah, by the way, it went from 20,000 to 100,000 in a state that Biden defeated Trump with 150,000 votes in the general election. To go out and actively vote against Joe Biden, to actively vote to say we're protesting what you're doing in fucking Gaza is, no matter which way you cut it, an incredibly important fucking a vote overall. An incredibly important and phenomenally successful campaign. Straight up. I don't know how to describe this to you. If you look at a situation like 2020, where Biden defeated Donald Trump by 150,000 votes, and in the fucking primary, you have 100,000 people who are likely Democratic Party voters who are participating in the Democratic Party's very own primary to protest the Democratic Party for one singular reason. Please, people that vote in the primaries are just a fraction of the people that end up voting in the general. Do you understand? A lot more people vote in the general, and the same goes for people that don't vote in the fucking general. If you can't, well, first of all, obviously 100,000 when Biden won the state with 150,000 is massive, right? Because 100,000 means a lot more people are not going to go out and vote. There's a lot more people who didn't go and vote for Biden in the primaries anyway. But having said that, when you say this is such fucking cope or that this wasn't massively successful, you're forgetting one key factor here. You are trying to run defense for the Democratic Party when the Democratic Party itself is in a state of disarray and pure panic over the fucking results of the uncommitted voter campaign. So you want to fucking LARP as a DNC wonk, as a lanyard wearing dickhead that is like for free doing defense for the Democratic Party or the Biden re-election campaign. And the Biden re-election campaign has got fucking alarm bells ringing in the fucking headquarters. That's crazy. So I don't know why you think this is good analysis at all. This is a major red flag. There is no way to 270 electoral votes without Michigan. And no, I'm not just getting one guy, chat. This is an 11-month subscriber. I obviously care a little bit more when someone is a long-term community member coming in here and saying like unhinged things, because I feel like I have failed to educate them on politics and how this works at all. Especially in a situation where it's like a clear-cut danger that the Biden campaign certainly recognizes. It's not just some random gray name. No way. Michigan is red after Roe v. Wade. Stop coping. It is cope. Can you calmly explain how Michigan is red after 150K votes difference before Roe v. Wade? I can. You are banking on people losing interest in Gaza. 200,000 voters, plus on top of that, the young voters that have voted for Biden that are no longer interested in voting for Biden before October 7. All of the different demographics that the Biden campaign desperately needs as it tries to retriangulate its efforts to winning over moderates that care about like Trump destroying democracy. All of those people that he left behind are going to play a major role in this. The 150,000 votes, if you look at the actual fucking numbers, if you look at the actual demographics of the people that voted for Biden that carried him across the finish line, you're forgetting a key part of you're forgetting key constituencies in the Brandon camp. I don't know why this is not something that so many liberals are just like not paying attention to for some reason. Do you want to be lied to, or are you actually paying attention to what's going on the ground? No shot he loses Michigan. Meanwhile, he hasn't led in a poll there since October. Yeah, the UAW nod was good for Biden. Okay, but it's not good enough without the other constituencies that he needs to fucking win this election. Young people are going to be very important. Millennials as a voting bloc are becoming more significant. Okay? Boomers are dying. And when you look at the millennials and you look at their opinion on Israel, Palestine, and millennials and even younger voters than millennials, Gen Z, you have to come to a very different conclusion on how you approach the issue of Israel, Palestine. This is one of the last boomer election cycles out there before they get cleaned out. Then you have Gen X, but then you have the massive population of millennials in this country. These aren't 100K general election voters. These are 100K door knockers, 100,000 family members reminding people to vote. They are clearly a very organized bloc, and they're not organizing for him like they did in 2020. Exactly. This is. I don't know why people are trying to come in here and play the role of a DNC guy and also repeating the same failures of the DNC. I don't understand it. Do you think because I am more interested in my politics beyond the electoral process that I don't know how this stuff works? Because I've been doing coverage, especially on the Democratic Party, for the past 10 fucking years at this point. It's certainly something that I understand. I'm not some like fucking random commentary YouTuber guy who doesn't live in the United States of America that like says stuff like Revolution Now or whatever. If that's how you fancy yourself, if that's how you think I am, you're wrong. This is definitely something that I'm very interested in. The intricacies of the electoral process is definitely something that I'm very interested in. That's why I always say I'm putting on my fucking DNC wonk hat for a moment and talking about this from the framework of like the success of the Democratic Party when I talk about things like this. I promise you, I know a lot more on this issue than whoever has led you astray and in terms of like their new interest in operating in this field. Okay? Been doing it for a lot longer than they have. The NC is the only reason Trump was ever president. Yes, that definitely played a big role. All right, let's continue with Mehdi.
He lost by 11,000. They're neck and neck in the polls. If you're not alarmed by what's happening in Michigan, you're a Democratic strategist, you should be.
Yeah, because at obviously 100,000 people, that was a muscle flex. We're here.
Yes.
Listen to us, because what needs to happen, do you think, practically speaking, not peace in the Middle East, but practically speaking, what needs to happen for most of those voters to come back in the Democratic fold? A ceasefire, what else?
So a lot of those voters, well, I can't say a number, but a significant chunk are probably lost.
They're gone.
I think they're lost.
Not to Trump. They'll go third
party.
They'll
go third party or stay home. Look, if you are somebody in Dearborn who's lost not 10, not 20, 30 members of your family in Gaza, You're going to show up to vote? Are you going to vote for Biden even if there's a ceasefire tomorrow? You can't expect that. But there is a significant chunk of people who do want this to be seen as an act of pressure. They don't want to vote for Trump. They're not pro-Trump.
Yep.
They just want to see the best version of Joe Biden and of America. They want a ceasefire. They want an end to the killings, not peace in the Middle East or a two-state solution or utopia, but a stop to the killings. Over 100 people a day, American weaponry, American money. They want to see that ceasefire. You're seeing Joe Biden promising a ceasefire is coming. I'm skeptical.
Don't you ever mention you have a bachelor's in political science? Because I don't care. It doesn't matter. My interest in politics was way before my bachelor's in political science, okay? Poli-sci is one thing, but I've talked about this before, but it bears, I mean, this is a good opportunity to repeat it. I became interested in politics in Turkey, okay? I became interested in politics growing up, watching the country that I grew up in transform under the Erdogan regime. That's how I became interested in politics. Everyone in Turkey is already interested in politics in general. I saw what can happen to a country when you have a relatively charismatic, populist, Trump-style leader from a very young age. Yes. The reason why I never bring up my degree is because it's kind of cringe to bring up your degree. I mean, I'm sure it works for the audience, but I don't care about the credentials.
Right. But I think the White House realized that they have to do something here.
So you make the point that they're not going to go to Trump, who called for a ban on Muslims entering the country. Let's say that this, I don't know what you would call it, this gambit of the Biden administration to force Netanyahu to sign a document saying, I will only use American armaments in compliance with international law, which Netanyahu seems reluctant to sign.
Yeah.
What if that...
Why is he reluctant to sign that, by the way? Because, like, that doesn't even mean that you're doing a ceasefire or anything. Netanyahu's like, actually, actually, no, we're not going to sign the fucking piece of paper that, like, literally allows us to keep doing whatever the fuck we're doing, but at least gives America a little bit of cover to act like they've, pushed us in some direction. They're like, no, dog, we are going to continue doing unethical usage of your weapons, and you can't do anything about it. It's so funny. He's like, no, we are doing war crimes. What are you going to do about it? You keep giving me more money, please. Keep giving me more of those weapons, baby. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to fucking stop? Huh? You're going to stop giving us fucking weapons? No, you're not. No, you're not. He's literally just fucking farting on Biden every day. They're farting on us, chat. They're farting on us.
Forces some sort of change in leadership in Israel. Might that be seen as more concrete even than a ceasefire?
I actually think the aid position is somewhere that Biden can have a lot of effort. You know, conditioning aid is very popular on the Democratic base, even members of Congress. I think it's mad that 5 months into the war, the Americans say, can you sign something saying you'll follow international law? Shouldn't that have been done on October the 8th? It's crazy that we're...
It should have not even been done on October the 8th. It should have never happened to begin with, because there is a law, which I know Mehdi knows, by the way, of course. There's a law in the U.S. Congress that fucking dictates that it is illegal to fund and facilitate and give lethal aid to countries that are using it in a way that does not follow international law. Hassan supports Hamas. My friend, I am a lesser evil voter. Hamas is the lesser evil when compared to Israel. Okay? This is not October 7. You can't come in here and be like, Hassan supports Hamas. Hamas. New York Times on where Hamas gets his weapons from. Where's Hamas getting its weapons? Increasingly from Israel. Hassan's supporting Hassan's. I think this guy's just memeing. Whatever, we'll untime him. All right. Speaking of Netanyahu, he's in a bad place. Expert says Netanyahu emotionally shattered by war. Oh, man. Did you talk about the Ludwig thing if you plan on doing that? What do you mean? What Ludwig thing? They're trying to spin a narrative that you support terrorism so they can get you banned, I think. Good luck. I do not support the Israeli state. Okay? I do not. Someone get him a BetterHelp sub? Yeah. Get him a BetterHelp sub so we can. No, I'm not gonna say it. I was close, but I didn't say
We're asking that now. And by the way, I also think it's crazy that Joe Biden is willing to wreck his presidency potentially and American democracy if Trump gets back in for Benjamin Netanyahu, a man who has basically, I can't find the daytime language for it, done bad things to every Democratic president in my lifetime. Bill Clinton struggled with Netanyahu, Barack Obama struggled with Netanyahu, and now Biden could sacrifice his own presidency. For who? For
Yeah. Like, dude. The liberal Zionism position is like, it is such a wonderful out for these fucking dumbass Democrats. Just lay the blame entirely on Benjamin Netanyahu, act like the entirety of the Israeli population, damn near the entirety of the Israeli Jewish population, according to Israel's own demographic numbers, by the way. This is not my assessment, okay? Is still very much in favor of like continuing the bombing campaign, okay? They're trying to say, you support terrorism, Hassan. I don't support Israel. Exactly. What? I don't understand. When people come in here and say, Hassan, you support terrorism, you know, I don't. I've never supported Israel. I don't know why people say that. It's weird. Have you condemned the Israeli occupying force today? Yes. Yes, I have. Did you go over the Intercept article? We will in a second. So yeah, that part we already covered. I just, you know, this is very instructive as someone who cares about media literacy and critical media analysis. I feel like, unfortunately, these moments are very, very instructive on helping people understand how consent is manufactured in real time. Yes, I talked about the chaotic incident. Exactly. There's also another side of the manufactured consent conversation that we're going to lead into in a second. Intercept did phenomenal reporting on the matter with the New York Times October 7 rape story that was taken down by the New York Times because of internal criticisms. But before we do that, I guess we already covered this. I don't know what else to say about it. There's like literal fucking video footage of it too. This is the last part.
And the Hamas-run eyewitnesses and the Hamas-run Palestinian Ministry of Health say that more than 100 people were killed in what is being described as a chaotic incident as IDF soldiers opened fire as people were trying to get food from aid trucks. CNN's Jeremy Diamond is gathering new details. He's been picking up some new reporting. Jeremy, bring us up to speed here.
Well, first of all, Kate, I think it's important to note that the aid situation, the humanitarian situation in northern Gaza is just so desperate. And that seems to be part of what led to this scene. Hundreds, if not thousands of people surrounding some of these aid trucks that were able to enter northern Gaza. Some of the very few aid trucks that have actually been able to make it in there. And you can see in this video by the from the Israeli military, the crowds of people around these trucks. But what appears to have happened is that the Israeli military opened fire on some of these people who were surrounding these trucks. An Israeli military official telling us that the crowd approached the forces in a manner that posed a threat to the troops, and they say that those troops then responded with live fire. Now, eyewitnesses on the scene have told us that Israeli tanks as well as drones opened fire on this crowd, and that following that, there was a chaotic scene. Some of the drivers of these aid trucks apparently tried to get away amid this gunfire and killed several additional people. We are told that 104 people were killed in this incident, 760 people.
Just a tiny correction. It wasn't taken down and they're standing by it. Yeah, we'll cover it. Don't worry.
Injured, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health. It's not clear yet how many of those were killed by Israeli gunfire versus by these trucks and the ensuing chaos. But our eyewitnesses on the ground indicate that it was the Israeli gunfire that prompted some of those trucks to flee the scene and in the process run over some of these individuals. But we are still working to gather additional details. The Israeli military says for its part that the incident is under review, and they are also saying in a statement that Gazan residents surrounded the trucks, looted the supplies being delivered, and that
I know I've come on here and spoken about how my parents are insane Zionists, but I think the chaotic incident may have done it for my father. I let him know about it this morning, and he said, that's fucked up, Jesus Christ. There has been a both sides spin on every massacre, but this is different, as they're really as there really isn't defending this. I think that's partially because like you may have been able to deliver the information accurately before they were able to get like a manufactured narrative. I mean, his opinion might change afterwards, inevitably, because like, see, they're saying like they looted the supplies and stuff like that. These are people who are trying to survive, right? There is no like, this is so gruesome to extend any kind of coverage utilizing the terms such as looting. They're surviving. They are trying to survive. There is a literal genocide going on, and they are trying to survive. Note to CNN, a chaotic incident is college kids storming a basketball court, not a massacre at a food line. Yeah, it's just, but I do see it. I think people, I guess it's like people can contextualize this, like they can conceptualize it, and the closer you can see yourself or an American in the shoes of a Palestinian, the more people will come to terms with it, if that makes sense. What I mean by this is like, remember, I talk about the West Bank quite a bit. Because like the West Bank is infinitely easier to understand from a Western sensibility perspective than Gaza. Entire city blocks wiped out by aerial bombing campaigns is something that Americans are used to seeing on television. They have no way of like conceptualizing that. We've never had that here, right? But the West Bank is individualized, personal acts of violence, like the Klan basically running around and killing black people. But this time, the entirety of the military force is backing the Klan. And it's the Israeli settlers that are like religious fundamentalists that are doing that to the Palestinian farmers, right? And I think this is it's close to like Hurricane Katrina, like a chaotic situation in the aftermath of a natural disaster, even though it is not a natural disaster at all. Obviously, it is a disaster of Israel's doing. But I think the way that the Western world sees it, the way that like Americans see it, this is, I mean, it's just the worst thing you can fucking do. You're shooting at people who are desperately trying to survive. You're shooting at women and children that are trying to grab any food that they can. There is no way to defend it. It is completely indefensible. I often check on the hogs in my local news comments, and the split of 95% pro-Israel, 5% anti-Semite turned into 60% pro-ceasefire, 20% Ukraine posting, 25% pro-Israel, 5% anti-Semite, which is an insane shift. My country is extremely Zionist, Germany neighbor. I disagree. Americans aren't looking to conceptualize. They just want to rationalize what they hear on TV and move on. No, that's not true. I don't agree with that. I think Americans recognize the powerlessness they have, especially as it pertains to foreign policy decisions that the government makes. Oftentimes it's also bipartisan. But I don't agree with you on that. If you think that like Americans don't see this and go, this is kind of fucked up, no matter how out of touch they are, I think you're wrong. The U.S. could easily end the famine with airdrops of our humanitarian rations that we have, thousands of tons on standby. I even showed Steve MRE eating one. Yeah. It's kind of weird. Earlier I was watching some Fox News clips on YouTube, and it's wild. Fox said a lot of people in the comments were realizing how disgusting the situation is and seemed very pro-Palestinian. Maybe it is rooted in anti-Semitism, but it was surprising. No, I think that even when you have a situation like 56% of the Republicans that are also looking for a ceasefire here, I don't think this is, at that point, it's not like anti-Semitism at play. Because the most rabid Israel defenders, as we know, the white evangelical population in the United States of America, the white evangelical Christian Zionists, are rabid anti-Semites. I think it's more so, at this stage, I think it's more so motivated by what people are literally seeing. The more that my style of coverage, which is just accurately addressing the conditions on the ground and actually talking about this in clear-cut terms and not trying to immediately contextualize the violence and why it's a necessity, the more people will turn on this. And it is happening. I think it is. Meanwhile, we also have this situation. Biden is delivering remarks during visit to the southern border, which is also another incredibly right-wing position that the Democratic Party is taking here too, which is another thing that we're going to tune into in a little bit. There's a shift in German public, not establishment as well. That's, if Germany falls, that's crazy. I doubt it. The German population is like the number one dick riders of Israel. Jesus Christ, dude. I mean, I don't even think that they'll stop ever. So, New York Times, this is from Ryan Grimm. This freelancer, here it is. The New York Times is investigating an Israeli freelancer after she repeatedly liked multiple X posts that indicated a pro-Israel bias, including one that was called for the Gaza Strip to be turned into a slaughterhouse. Okay? This was a freelancer who played a lead role in the paper's most consequential coverage of war and had no journalism experience. The better question is who assigned her these stories, why, and what they were thinking. Now, this is from 4 days ago. Ryan found answers to this question in the latest coverage that they've done on the matter. Between the hammer and the anvil, the story behind the New York Times October 7 expose. Okay? Anat Schwartz had a problem. The Israeli filmmaker and former Air Force intelligence official had been assigned by the New York Times to work with her nephew, Adam Sella, and veteran Times reporter Jeffrey Gettleman on an investigation into sexual violence by Hamas on October 7 that could reshape the way the world understood Israel's ongoing war in the Gaza Strip. By November, global opposition was mounting against Israel's military campaign, which had already killed thousands of children, women, and the elderly. On her social media feed, which the Times has said since it is reviewing, Schwartz liked the tweet saying that Israel needed to turn the Strip into a slaughterhouse. Violate any norm on the way to victory, read the post. Those in front of us are human animals who do not hesitate to violate minimal rules. The New York Times, however, does have rules and norms. Schwartz had no prior reporting experience. Her reporting partner, Gettleman, explained the basics to her. Schwartz said in a podcast interview on January 3rd, produced by Israel's Channel 12 and conducted in Hebrew. Gettleman, she said, was concerned they get at least two sources for every detail we put in the article, cross-check information. Do we have forensic evidence? Do we have visual evidence? Apart from telling our readers this happened, what can we say? Can we tell what happened to whom? Schwartz said she was initially reluctant to take the assignment because she did not want to look at visual images of potential assaults and because she lacked the expertise to conduct such an investigation. Victims of sexual assault are women who have experienced something, and then to come and sit in front of such a woman, who am I anyway, she said. I have no qualifications. Nonetheless, she began working with Gettleman on the story. She explained in the podcast interview. Gettleman, a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter, is an international correspondent, and when he is sent to a bureau, he works with news assistants and freelancers on stories. In this case, several newsroom sources familiar with the process said Schwartz and Sella did the vast majority of the ground reporting while Gettleman focused on the framing and writing. The resulting report, published in late December, was headlined, "Screams Without Words, How Hamas Weaponized Sexual Violence on October 7." It was a bombshell and galvanized the Israeli war effort at a time when even some of Israel's allies were expressing concern over its large-scale killing of civilians in Gaza. It was a restatement of atrocity propaganda, the type of which that you immediately recognize when it's Rabbi Shmuley saying Hamas cut the breasts off of 500 women and chopped them and played football with them. That is atrocity propaganda of the highest magnitude. The New York Times is not going to reach that depth, obviously, because that's not good propaganda. That's the type of propaganda that people immediately go, okay, I don't believe that. By the way, what I just mentioned about Rabbi Shmuley is a quote. He quoted that numerous times in his conversation against Norm Finkelstein on Piers Morgan's talk show. He said that as though it was a matter of fact. It was not. Of course it wasn't. Now, let me explain something. And I'm going to run the top of the hour ad break right now. And then, I'm not doing a segue. This is serious coverage. Let me explain something. Sexual assaults, rapes, and the like are a routine part of atrocities during war. It can happen, and it has happened time and time again, which is why there is a likelihood that it could have happened on October 7th. This is a position that I've maintained since October 7th. There were plenty of atrocities that occurred on October 7th, okay, that are akin to acts of terror. Absolutely. Because on October 7th, it wasn't just the Palestinian brigades, a coalition of resistance forces that includes Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, PFLP, DFLP, and many others. It was also, once the barrier into Israel was broken, there was also criminal elements that broke through said barrier. Okay? But as far as we saw, given how much of what happened on October 7 was filmed, including the actual, real atrocities of Palestinian forces executing civilians, shooting at porta potties and the like during the Nova Festival, and many other circumstances, the likelihood that there wasn't any firsthand accounts on rampant sexual assault in the way that the original coverage entailed, that didn't meet the muster, like the normal standard of the New York Times reporting, is crazy. Okay, there are some reasons for it, because this was, for all intents and purposes, as far as the Palestinian resistance goes, a operation that was, in their own words, much more successful than they had predicted. They thought that there would be a lot more resistance overall, and that once the dam broke, there was a shit ton more violence than a quick in and out operation where they would be able to capture some prisoners of war as hostages in an effort to bargain, in an effort to negotiate with the Israeli apartheid regime. In that chaos, there was absolutely a majority of civilians that were slaughtered, executed in their homes, executed when they were going about their daily lives. Okay? It was horrifying. Inside the newsroom, the article was met with praise from editorial leaders, but skepticism from other Times journalists. The paper's flagship podcast, The Daily, attempted to turn the article into an episode, but it didn't manage to get through a fact check, as Intercept previously reported. If you recall, because the daily episode was released and quickly taken off the air because it failed. It failed the New York Times' own standards. As the Times faces scrutiny for its coverage of Israel's war on Gaza, it has capitulated to the pro-Israel media watchdog Camera. Camera is another Hasbro operation, but we're not going to get into that right now. They pulled a high-profile episode of its podcast, The Daily, about sexual violence perpetrated by Hamas on October 7 amid a furious internal debate about the strength of the paper's original reporting on the subject. The Times newsroom told sources, told The Intercept, the episode had been scheduled for January 9 and was based on a prominent article led by Pulitzer Prize winner Jeffrey Gettleman, claiming that Hamas had systematically used sexual violence as a weapon of war. The fear among Times staffers who had been critical of the paper's Gaza coverage is that Schwartz will become a scapegoat for what is a much deeper failure. She may harbor animosity towards Palestinians, lack the experience with investigative journalism, and feel conflicting pressures between being a supporter of Israel's war effort and a Times reporter. But Schwartz did not commission herself and her nephew to report one of the most consequential stories of the war. Senior leadership at the New York Times did. Schwartz said as much in an interview with the Israeli Army radio on December 31st. The New York Times said, let's do an investigation into sexual violence. It was more of a case of them having to convince me, she said. Her host cut her off. It was a proposal of the New York Times, the entire thing? Unequivocally, obviously, of course, she said. The paper stood behind us 200% and gave us the time, the investment, the resource to go in depth with this investigation as much as needed. If you recall at the time, by the way, right around the same newspaper publication from the New York Times, Israel was very mad at the UN committee probing Hamas sexual atrocities against Israeli women, calling them Hamas and also anti-Semitic. This is a normal part of the process for truth seeking. Why would you go against this investigation by the United Nations? Please understand that there is a likelihood of sexual violence that occurred on October 7th. Make no mistake. The fact that they would stand against that, the Israeli government would stand against that and claim that the UN investigation is akin to having Hamas leader investigate the sex crimes himself is fucking ridiculous. It is ridiculous. You have to understand. Can you imagine in a circumstance where you have been victimized and you want there to be some legal repercussions for the perpetrators, and then the criminal justice system comes in and they're like, okay, we're going to take a look at this. Like we are taking your allegations very seriously. We are going to conduct an investigation. And you go, no, you fucking hate me. You can't conduct an investigation. You just have to take what I said and immediately do something, which we are doing ourselves. And you should just step aside as we do the thing that we're doing in retaliation. Just remember that. That is incredible, in my opinion. Let's get back to the article by The Intercept. Shortly after the war broke out, some editors and reporters complained that time standards barred them from referring to Hamas as terrorists. The rationale from the Standards Department, run for 14 years by Philip Corbett, had long been that Hamas was the de facto administrator of a specific territory rather than a stateless terror group. Deliberately killing civilians, went the argument, was not enough to label a group terrorists, as that label could apply quite broadly, including to the United States government and including to Israel, especially to Israel, for the record. But the New York Times does not apply that same rigorous standard to all groups, because when it comes to foreign policy, the New York Times is a stenographer for the State Department. That much is clear. And that has always been the case. That's why they were championing the lies about the Iraq War that brought us into the Iraq War. They are complacent. I love the New York Times. I think it's a very valuable organ of the media. I think it's a very valuable part of this process. I could not do what I do without mainstream media, without Associated Press, without the journalists. I have friends that work at these outlets. Please make no mistake. I'm not doing a classic like, fucking fake news, mainstream media is fake. I'm not doing that. I'm not saying that at all. That is why I always apply media criticism and also media literacy. I always try to explain to people media literacy. It's like me holding your hand and guiding you through these news articles. The New York Times is not supposed to be a dish rag. But unfortunately, when it comes down to it, when it comes to channeling narratives that the State Department wants out there, they will absolutely do it. Corbett, after October 7th, defended the policy in the face of pressure, newsroom sources said, but he lost. On October 19th, an email went out on behalf of Executive Director Joe Kahn saying that Corbett had asked to step back from his position. After 14 years of the embodiment of time standards, Phil Corbett has told us he'd like to step back a bit and let someone else take the leading role in this crucial effort, the Times leadership explained. 3 newsroom sources said that the move was tied to the pressure he was under to soften coverage in Israel's favor. One of the social media posts that Schwartz liked, triggering the Times review, made the case that, for Israeli propaganda purposes, Hamas should be likened at all times to the Islamic State. This is a direct carbon copy of not just the American position at the time, but it was cultivated and deliberately crafted by the Israeli Foreign Ministry. Hamas's ISIS was a hashtag. Hamas's ISIS was what Israel went along with post-October 7 to justify the genocidal campaign that they were engaging in. Ironic, considering that they went with Hamas's ISIS and Hamas are Nazis, when Israel has, as a matter of fact, aligned with al-Nusra at times and resembles ISIS way closer in nature, both in its colonial endeavors and also its bastardization of religion, as though it is a religious purpose that guides them. Just like ISIS tried unsuccessfully to say that they were doing this for Islam, Israel has weaponized Judaism in the most nefarious purposes to justify their atrocities. So the point I'm trying to make is that a closer comparison between ISIS would not be with Hamas, a resistance group against the apartheid regime, but instead with Israel. Yes, whether it be destruction of archaeological and cultural sites, destruction of an entire population. Since the revelations regarding Schwartz's recent social media activity, her byline has not appeared in the paper and she has not attended editorial meetings. The paper said that a review into her social media likes is ongoing. Those likes are unacceptable violations of our company policy, said a Times spokesperson. The bigger scandal may be the reporting itself, the process that allowed it to print, and the life-altering impact the reporting had for thousands of Palestinians whose deaths were justified by the alleged systematic sexual violence orchestrated by Hamas, the paper claimed to have exposed. Another frustrated Times reporter, who has also worked as an editor there, said, "A lot of focus will understandably, rightfully be directed to Schwartz, but this is the most clearly poor editorial decision-making that undermines all the other great work being tirelessly done across the paper." Remember, I have like literal friends at the New York Times that have conducted very good investigations, okay, on the visual team and on other aspects of the Times coverage as it pertains to Israel-Palestine, okay? Just remember, there are people, I'm not going to reveal who they are for obvious reasons, but there are people I talk to almost on a weekly fucking basis about the ongoing issues. They have sources on the ground. It is not the entirety of the paper is not fraudulent. However, on this in this instance, they absolutely are. They absolutely are. The paper is whole cloth engaging in genocide apologia. Just remember that. The Channel 12 podcast interview with Schwartz, which The Intercept translated from Hebrew, opens a window into their controversial story and suggests that the New York Times' mission was to bolster a predetermined narrative. In a response to The Intercept's questions about Schwartz's podcast interview, a spokesperson for the New York Times walked back the blockbuster article's framing that evidence shows Hamas had weaponized sexual violence to a softer claim that there may have been systematic use of sexual assault. Times International editor Phil Pan said in a statement that he stands by the work. Mrs. Schwartz was a part of a rigorous reporting and editing process, he said. She made valuable contributions and we saw no evidence of bias in her work. We remain confident in the accuracy of our reporting and stand by the team's investigation. But as we have said, her likes of offensive and opinionated social media posts predating her work with us are unacceptable. After the story was published, Schwartz, who did not respond to a request for comment, tweeted to thank the Times for standing behind the important stories we have published. She added, "The recent attacks against me will not deter me from continuing my work." Addressing her social media activity, Schwartz said, "I understand why people who do not know me were offended by the inadvertent like I pressed on 10/7, and I apologize for that. At least 3 of her likes have been subject of public scrutiny." In the podcast interview, Schwartz details her extensive reports to get confirmation from Israeli hospitals, rape crisis centers, trauma recovery facilities, and sex assault hotlines in Israel, as well as her inability to get a single confirmation from any of them. This part is very important. This is why I am stating that this does not meet the muster of the paper of record. Okay? She was told there had been no complaints made of sexual assaults, the Times spokesperson acknowledged after Intercept brought the Channel 12 podcast episode to the paper's attention. The fact that you did not get a single confirmation and then turned around and still reported on the matter, and the New York Times published it with a title such as, where is it? Where the fuck is it? Oh, here. Screams without words how Hamas weaponized sexual violence on October 7th is insane. Okay? It's unacceptable. This is not the op-ed piece. This is not an opinion piece. this is not the editorial side of the New York Times. This is supposed to be real reporting. And if real reporting falls apart and it is this biased, then what can you trust? Obviously, it is impossible to remain neutral. I get that. That's why I openly tell you what my biases are when I'm engaging in commentary. Although the editorial team that is supposed to be openly biased will refuse to acknowledge that. However, on the objective reporting side, there is a standard that must be applied. And the New York Times often is supposed to apply said standard. They do in other articles. The fact that they did not here is insane. This is one of the most consequential stories that they brought forward, where they openly acknowledged that there was no independent confirmation. That's crazy. She was told there had been no complaints made of sexual assault. The Times spokesperson acknowledged after Intercept brought the Channel 12 podcast episode to the paper's attention. This, however, was just the very first step of her research. She then describes the unfolding of evidence, testimonies, and eventual evidence that there may have been systematic use of sexual assault, the spokesperson asserted. She details her research steps and emphasizes the Times' strict standards to corroborate evidence and meetings with reporters and editors to discuss probing questions and think critically about the story. The question has never been whether individual acts of sexual assault may have occurred on October 7. Rape is not uncommon in war, and there were also several hundred civilians who poured into Israel from Gaza that day in a second wave, contributing to and participating in the mayhem and violence. This much is true. The central issue is whether the New York Times presented solid evidence to support its claim that there were newly reported details establishing the attacks against women were not isolated events, but part of a broader pattern of gender-based violence on October 7, a claim stated in the headline that Hamas deliberately deployed sexual violence as a weapon of war. Anyway, this goes into detail about like all of her research. And by the way, as it stands now, I'm almost certain that I think, if I'm not, I think CNN is still trying to do a separate documentary on October 7, specifically as it pertains to coordinated efforts of sexual violence conducted by Hamas and other Palestinian militancy. As Israeli, I support Israel. Listen, brother, there are plenty of Israelis in this chat, okay? They recognize the reality. They recognize that Israel is an apartheid state. They recognize that Israel is doing a genocidal campaign in Gaza. I urge you to, I don't know, reach out to some real Israeli leftists, okay? Instead of unconditionally defending and supporting a fascist, Judeo-supremacist, apartheid regime currently engaging in an ethnic cleansing campaign. Plenty, only two guys, and the only leftists in Israel. Doesn't matter. There's not only two guys. Anyway, I was born in the United States of America. There has never been a moment where I have ever defended American imperialism. You don't have to either, okay? The manager told, the sexual assault hotline manager told that there were no reports of sexual violence. She described the call as a crazy in-depth conversation where she pressed for specific cases. Did anyone call you? Did you hear anything? How could it be that you didn't? As Schwartz began her own efforts to find evidence of sexual assault, the first specific allegations of rape began to emerge. A person identified in anonymous media interviews as a paramedic from the Israeli Air Force Medical Unit 669 claimed he saw evidence that two teenage girls at kibbutz Nahal Oz had been raped and murdered in their bedroom. The man made other outrageous claims, however, that called his report into question. He claimed another rescuer pulled out of the garbage a baby who'd been stabbed multiple times. He also said he had seen Arabic sentences that were written on entrances of houses with the blood of the people that were living in the houses. No such messages exist, and the story of the baby in the trash can has been debunked. The bigger problem was that no two girls at the kibbutz fit the source's description. In future interviews, he changed the location to Kibbutz Be'eri, but no victims killed there matched the description either, as Mondo Weiss reported. After seeing these interviews, Schwartz started calling people at Kibbutz Be'eri and other kibbutzim that were targeted on October 7. in an effort to track down the story. Nothing. There was nothing, she said. No one saw or heard anything. She then reached a Unit 69 paramedic who relayed to Schwartz the same story he had told other media outlets, which she says convinced her there was systematic nature to the sexual violence. I say, okay, so it happened. One person saw it happen in Be'eri. Remember, claims that were already disproven. Claims that have not been proven at all, and other claims he had made that were utterly ridiculous and disproven instantly. So it can't just be one person because it's two girls. It's sisters. It's in the room. Something about it is systematic. Something about it feels to me that it's not random, Schwartz concluded on the podcast. Schwartz said she then began a series of extensive conversations with Israeli officials from Zakah. Now, Zakah is important because the private ultra-Orthodox rescue organization was documented to have mishandled evidence, spread multiple false stories about the events of October 7, including debunked allegations of Hamas operatives beheading babies, cutting the fetus from a pregnant woman's body. Its workers are not trained forensic scientists or crime scene experts. When we go into a house, we use our imagination, said Yossi Landau, a senior Zakah official, describing the group's work at October 7 attack sites. Not only that, but the Israeli media, Hebrew Israeli media, very clearly conducted deep investigations, and these are not outlets that are anti-Zionist in nature, about the incredulous claims made by Zakah and how self-interested they were in fundraising after October 7. Zakah, sorry. Additional irony to this, the dark irony here, is that the cutting off the fetus from a pregnant woman's body did happen. It happened in Lebanon at the hands of phalangist, Christian, fascist militias that were operating alongside the IDF. It happened to a Palestinian woman living in a refugee camp. So that is a real thing that happened in Sabra and Shatila, the massacres that occurred there. Using it as furthering your October 7 atrocity porn is disgusting. Same with the baby in the oven story. If you recall, another story from October 7 was that babies were thrown into the oven in kibbutzim. Babies were not thrown into the oven in kibbutzim on October 7. Babies, Palestinian babies, were thrown in an oven, according to first-hand testimony from both the terrorist Israeli brigades, pre-Israel, obviously, pre-formation of Israel, from Irgun and Lihi militias that were self-declared terrorist organizations, mind you, in Deir Yassin, in a Palestinian village, in one of the acts conducted as a part of Plan Dalet, an organized effort to ethnically displace millions of Palestinians from their ancestral homes. Its workers are not trained. They let their imaginations run wild. The bodies were telling us what happened. That's what happened. Landau is featured in the Times report, though no mention is made of his well-documented track record of disseminating sensational stories of atrocities that were later proven false. Schwartz said that in her initial reviews, Zakah members did not make any specific allegations of rape, but described the general condition of the bodies they said they saw. We saw naked women, or we saw women without underwear, both naked without underwear, and tied with zip ties, and sometimes not zip ties, sometimes a rope or a string of a hoodie. Schwartz continued to look for evidence of various sites of attack and found no witnesses to corroborate stories of rape. And so I searched a lot in the kibbutzim, and apart from this testimony of the Israeli military paramedic, and additionally here and there, Zakah people, the stories didn't emerge from there, she said. So she continued to work the phones with rescue officials. Schwartz then saw interviews that international news channels began airing with Shari Mendez, an American architect who serves in a rabbinical unit of the IDF. Mendez, who was deployed to a morgue to prepare bodies for the burial after October 7 attacks, claimed to have seen voluminous evidence of sexual assaults. What did this fucking guy say? Misha Rub, as an Israeli soldier who participated in this war and thankfully killed many Hamas terrorists, you really should thank Israel for this war, and it would help both sides to not have Hamas in Gaza. Free Gaza from Hamas, says Misha Rub. I wish you a life that you have already created for yourself, where you will piss yourself to sleep every single fucking night as the cries of the Palestinian children that you ruthlessly slaughtered will haunt you in perpetuity. Have fun. You know, that's going to happen. It's going to happen anyway. See you in the next 10 years when you're fucking crying to the Knesset in a testimony about how you piss your fucking pants and the children that you murdered haunt you every single fucking day. I can't believe you just like so openly fucking admit that you're a giant piece of shit to 21,000 people. Like, you're just a monster. It's great. Most likely not real. There's no shot that that's like a real person who actually is doing that. We saw evidence of rape, Mendez stated in one interview. Pelvises were broken, and it probably takes a lot to break a pelvis. And this was among grandmothers down to small children. This is not just something we saw on the internet. We saw these bodies with our own eyes. Mendez has been a ubiquitous figure in the Israeli government and major media narratives on sexual violence on October 7, despite the fact that she has no medical or forensic credentials to legally determine rape. She was also spoken about other violence on October 7, telling Daily Mail in October, a baby was cut out of a pregnant woman and beheaded, and then the mother was beheaded. No pregnant woman died that day, according to the official Israeli list of those killed in the attacks, and the independent research collective October 7 Fact Check said Mendez's story was false. The issue here is that there is enough atrocities that occurred on October 7 that if you just kept it to the reality, there is enough. There's just not enough to continue Israel's genocidal campaign. That's it. There's enough to whip people into a frenzy, okay? But there just isn't enough for a 5-month-long genocide, a slow burn, as the entirety of Gaza is razed. And that's the problem. Ridiculous. And we have seen this time and time again, for the record, okay? This has happened during the Reconstruction era. This has happened to black people in America quite frequently in an effort to garner attention and whip people into a frenzy, into engaging in lynch mobs, mass lynching campaigns. Okay? This is the false narrative that was presented that happened in the Tulsa massacre. A lie was told about a black man whistling at a white woman, which led to the Tulsa massacre, which is still to this day, by some unfortunately white supremacist historians, as a Tulsa race riot. It's not a race riot at all. It was one of the first instances where bombs were dropped domestically on top of a bustling black neighborhood, also known as Black Wall Street. It was a pogrom, a slaughter. Bombs from airplanes were dropped on top of a black neighborhood. It's also happened in 1985 in Pennsylvania in the Move bombing, but, you know, it's just this is atrocity propaganda that has been used time and time again. This was done in Iraq as well. It is a way to launder a convenient narrative to an audience that wants to feel like the actions that a state is engaging in, no matter how genocidal, no matter how bloodthirsty, is righteous. People want to feel good about the bombing campaign. After Schwartz saw interviews with Mendez, she was further convinced that the systematic rape narrative was true. I'm like, wow, what is this? She recalled. And it feels to me like it's starting to approach a plurality, even if you don't know which numbers to put on it yet. At the same time, this is what happens when you have motivated reasoning, by the way. At the same time, Schwartz said she felt conflicted at times, wondering if she was becoming convinced of the truth of the overarching story, precisely because she was looking for evidence to support the claim. I kept wondering all the time whether if I just hear about rape and see rape and think about it, whether that's just because I'm leading toward that, she said. She pushed those doubts aside. By the time Schwartz interviewed Mendez, the IDF reservist story had ricocheted around the world and had been conclusively debunked. No baby was cut from the mother and beheaded, yet Schwartz and the New York Times would go on to rely on Mendez's testimony, as well as other witnesses with track records of making unreliable claims and lacking forensic credentials. No mention was made of questions about Mendez's credibility. How Schwartz landed in such an extraordinary position at a crucial moment in the war is not entirely clear. Prior to joining the Times as a stringer last fall, her nephew Sela was a freelance journalist covering stories on issues ranging from food, photography, and culture to peace efforts, economics, and the occupation. According to his LinkedIn profile, Sela's first collaboration with Gettleman, published on October 14th, was a look at the trauma experienced by students at a university in southern Israel. For Schwartz, her first byline landed on November 14th. What is this? Took empty box to recycling instead of throwing it in the trash chute. Okay, I don't. Why is this relevant right now? We're doing something super serious. Okay. Anyway, Israeli police officials shared more evidence on Tuesday of atrocities committed during October 7 Hamas-led attacks, saying that they had collected testimonies from more than 1,000 witnesses and survivors about sexual violence and other abuses, Schwartz reported. The story went on to quote Israeli police chief Kobi Shabtai, explaining a litany of evidence of gruesome killings and sexual assaults on October 7. This is the most extensive investigation the state of Israel has ever known, Shabtai said in the Schwartz article, promising ample evidence would soon be provided. When the Times later produced its definitive Screams Without Words investigation, however, Schwartz and her partners reported that, contrary to Shabtai's claim, forensic evidence of sexual violence was non-existent. Non-existent. Without acknowledging the past statements by Shabtai in the Times, the paper reported that quick funerals in accordance with Jewish tradition meant evidence was not preserved. Unnamed experts told the Times that sexual violence in wars often leaves limited forensic evidence. On the podcast, Schwartz said her next step was to go to a new holistic therapy facility established to address the trauma of October 7 victims, particularly those who endured the carnage at the Nova Music Festival. Opened a week after the attacks, the facility began welcoming hundreds of survivors where they would seek counseling, do yoga, and receive alternative medicine, as well as acupuncture, sound healing, and reflexology treatments. They called it Marhav Marpe, or healing space. In multiple visits to the healing space, Schwartz again said in the podcast interview that she found no direct evidence of rapes or sexual violence. She expressed frustration with therapists and counselors at the facility, saying they engaged in a conspiracy of silence. Everyone, even those who heard these kinds of things from people, they felt were very committed to their patients, or even just the people who assisted their patients, not to reveal things, she said. In the end, Schwartz came away with only innuendo and general statements from the therapist about how people process trauma, including sexual violence and rape. She said potential victims might be ashamed to speak out, experiencing survivor's guilt, or were still in shock. Perhaps also because Israeli society is conservative, there was some inclination to keep silent about this issue of sexual abuse, Schwartz speculated. On top of this, there is probably the added dimension of the religious national aspect, that this was done by a terrorist, by someone from Hamas, she added. There were lots and lots of layers that made it so they didn't speak. So every step of the process when she was conducting her investigation, she found that there was no evidence, and oftentimes evidence that disproved the prior narrative that she was motivated to establish. She even recognized that she was motivated to establish this, by the way, and yet still went along with the fact that there's no evidence. It must mean that there is evidence, as a matter of fact. But it was not a matter of fact at all. It was a matter of opinion. According to the published Times article, two therapists said they were working with a woman who was gang raped at the rave and was in no condition to talk to investigators or reporters. Schwartz said she had focused on the kibbutzim because she had initially determined it was unlikely sexual assaults had occurred at the Nova Music Festival. I was very skeptical that it happened at the area of the party because everyone I spoke to among the survivors told me about a chase, a race like moving from place to place, she recalled. How would they have had the time to mess with a woman? Like, it is impossible. Either you hide or you die. Also, it's public, the Nova, such an open space. My coworkers always laugh at me when I say it's an apartheid state. What is the one best example I can prove it to them? Use the Israeli NGO, B'Tselem, or Amnesty International, and their coverage on why Israel is an apartheid state. Everyone here's the thing. This is why I am like, this is why I'm very stubborn, but I guess my stubbornness works in this situation. This is why I regularly fucking talk about how false narratives can be presented as truth, and then the broader population that does not have access to like readily available information will just like reaffirm the calculated messages that they are seeing from the media. The New York Times doesn't call it an apartheid state, so it mustn't be that. But it doesn't matter. In some ways, you get to, yes, watch an echo chamber form and operate in real time. That's why I think, like, regardless of the constant, endless conflict coverage in real time can lead to me even misspeaking from time to time, which happens, but it happens very rarely, and I immediately clarify. One of the most significant parts of what I do is to show you in real time how violence is contextualized by the Israeli Defense Force in real time on CNN and many other outlets, and how you whitewash a genocidal campaign that is like genocidal in broad daylight, by the way, just clear cut.
Damn, this guy's good.